How's things going for you? Everything good?
Everything good, and you?
Yeah, just staying busy. I started doing the software job for a friend, like writing software reports. So he's been keeping me pretty busy. And I'm playing a lot as well. I got a few new bands, and yeah, things are good.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
This is an interview for a project in Argentina. It's called Mundo Batero.
Mundo Batero. Okay, yeah.
What can you tell us about your present and future projects in general?
Right now, I'm really concentrating on finding friends, brothers to play with.
In a band?
Just in multiple bands. Really, it's funny because you get to this quote professional career, and you start playing and you start getting hired for gigs, right? A lot of the times, these people that are hiring you, they're not really your friends. They're not really your buddies. You didn't grow up with a lot of these people, so they just become acquaintances, but they're not people that you would necessarily create music with otherwise, unless you were just hired to, for their band. So lately, I've turned down a lot of opportunities to play with bands, to be hired by other bands, just so I can be home and create music with people that are my friends, people that are my brothers, people that, that in my everyday life, they're kind of there as well outside of music, and I'm finding that I've kind of rediscovered what I fell in love with about playing it to begin with. I've kind of come full circle.
Yeah. Wow.
Because when I started, mostly when all of us started playing, we started playing with our friends, and
yeah.
Like when you're in school growing up, all your buddies got together and you played, and that's something that my entire professional career I felt that I've been missing.
Wow.
So I'm kind of just back in that mindset of I just want to jam with my buddies and create music with people that I like, and if people hear it and enjoy it, that's great. But if they don't, then that's cool too.
Yeah.
No pressure.
You don't like to be a hired gun.
Well, it depends on the band. It depends on the people and and the music too. Obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which bands are you now? In which bands are you now?
Okay, so I have a band here named The Great Die.
Oh, and I saw some videos of that.
Yeah, you saw some videos recently. Yes, I put up.
Killer sounding drums, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Great.
Local guys here in town. We got our first gig actually in April playing with Nile and Soulfly down here in Florida. So
great.
That'll be fun. And we get together a couple times a week and play and just have fun and write music, and it's a cool situation. I've got another band called Ends. Ends. Yeah, like ENDS,
okay.
Ends. And it's not as Florida metal sounding. It's death metal, but it's more progressive kind of death metal. And
Amazing.
I'll have that out maybe in the next month or two. So start looking for video and audio for that as well. Yeah. I also have 12 songs coming out with Nate Arsatic that I've recorded. And those have Glenn Benton singing from Deicide.
Great.
And Richie Brown playing guitar, Jim Ross playing guitar, and several different bass players. There's probably, 6 or 8 different bass players that play on it. Novi from Behemoth, and Vader, and Forrest, Dominic LaPonte from Beyond Creation, and Gorguts up in Canada.
Wow.
So there's a lot of really cool, really good players involved in it, and so that also will be coming out here, and probably in the next 6 months, maybe we'll have it finished.
Yeah, I will be waiting that.
Yeah, lots of music.
Great. Sounds amazing, man.
Yeah.
And how much do you think your music influences the fact that you can compose and play some guitar?
Oh, yeah, a lot for me. Um, I have an active imagination as far as music is concerned, so makes it really easy for me to be able to play guitar to a guitar player and say, okay, here's what I'm hearing. And then I'll kind of give it to them to do what they want to do with it, melody or rhythmically or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So I think that helps me. Going back to Sadek, Nader, he's more of an artist.
Guitar
And
player?
no, but he can hum music. He'll record himself, like, and then send it to one of us to, I mean, he can play a little bit if he needs to, but he's more of an artist. But he is a great musician. He just doesn't have the ability to really play anything proficiently. But he's got the brain for it,
Okay. Yes.
But I don't think I would be able to communicate as well like that. So I'm thankful that I can play guitar, or even a little bit of piano if I need to just get a melody down or whatever. I'm thankful that I can do that, And it's funny because, all right, my brother, he's almost 10 years older than me. Okay, so when I was 10, he was 20, right?
Yeah.
So, I was 10 years old playing drums all day, and then at night when he was out looking for girls, I would sneak in his room and play guitar because he's a guitar player, right?
Right.
So, from a very early age, almost as long as I've been playing drums, I've been playing guitar.
Wow.
So, and that was because of my brother,
Amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
Great. And if there is any, what style of music you do not like? If there is any.
Like, there's not really anything that I don't like. I mean, I think that I can find appreciation for almost anything if the content is good, right? So, like, when things start to get off for me, it's like when bands use content for attention. And that happens in all genres, So what I mean, like some of the rap music, like glorifying killing cops, or some of the death metal music glorifying, killing women, or some of the country music glorify like drinking and getting into bar fights. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, makes sense.
That kind of stuff, I tend to lose appreciation for that because it's very cliche and predictable.
Yeah.
And it's basically just done for attention. And, so for me, I really don't care what the genre is or what type of music it is, as long as the content is something meaningful and something, whether it's lyrical or whether it's playing or whatever that is. I just don't like content that's not original and stuff that I feel that has already been done or is stale, so to speak, expired.
Yeah, very cool.
So I like stuff that's like new and different, and content, is very high caliber and forward thinking, and So like for stuff that I don't like, because it could be anything, it could be any style of music of things that I don't really like. But as a whole, there's not like one style of music that I don't like,
Okay, yeah, great. And living in Florida, what difference would you say it makes in terms of weather and the music scene compared, say, to LA or New York? How does your location influence you musically?
Okay, that's a good one. Here in South Florida, there's a lot of Latin influence. There's
Because
a lot
Miami,
of, yeah, in the islands. There's a lot of Afro-Cuban influence from the islands.
you play some Latin music.
A little bit,
I saw you.
yeah. If I get called to do, a gig, a fill-in or whatever, I have a lot of friends in town that are drummers, and they play a lot. And a lot of these guys, sometimes they can't do all the gigs, so we kind of call each other. If something comes up that I can't do, I'll call somebody, and we all kind of have this brotherhood down here of, whether it's metal or Latin or jazz or blues or whatever. I get guys calling me all the time, hey, can you do this blues gig, on Saturday or whatnot. So that type of stuff I got involved with from a couple of my Latin friends that said, hey, man, you should come down and give it a shot, and see how it feels. Yeah.
The complex music or just
Um,
for dancing?
like popular Latin, yeah, like popular Latin from what's available in Florida. A lot of just really jamming, kind of a jamming situation,
More free, in a free way.
Yeah. A lot of players like that down here, especially like in the Latin jazz and like the blues and R&B scene. It's more, they'll take a like the head of a popular song and then just use that as an excuse for everybody to solo. so that's kind of a popular thing down here to do, because there's a lot of really good players, and these guys, they want to play, they don't want to like be stuck playing cover songs, so a lot of guys will kind of make their own take on popular songs, and whether that's Latin or blues or techno even, or R&B, whatever, you can do that pretty much across the board. So yeah, I got involved in playing a little bit of Latin music just from guys asking me, hey bro, you should come down and play. And, I'll give it a shot, why not? So yeah, that's a fun thing. So here, I mean, I guess LA too. LA has kind of a strong, I wouldn't call like it's Central America. Yeah, Central America is different than South America rhythms, So like California has more of the Central America influx, whereas Florida has more of the South America and Afro-Cuban influx, But, there's one thing that I'd like to say about like influence in different cities and things. How many times have you heard a band local to your area, right, say, man, this town is not very good. It's no good for this scene. We need to go on tour, right?
Oh, always.
You hear this all the time, right?
In everywhere, I think.
Well, yeah. Well, my explanation for that is, I've been all around the world to a lot of different places, and people are the same everywhere. You know what I mean? So I tell bands all the time, if you're not big in your hometown, you're not going to be big anywhere else.
But maybe the music genre matters in the place, I think. It influences or not.
Well, yeah, different types of music, like we were saying with Latin and different things, like that will influence. There's like a lot of Latin metal bands that have come out of Miami, So you'll have that kind of influence. But I'm just saying overall in general, like no matter what style of music that you play, no other place is going to be better for your music than your hometown. If you can't draw the people in your hometown to come see you play, you're not going to be able to do that anywhere else either, So I think there's this mindset that people get into is like, well, maybe somebody would like my music better somewhere else. And that's not necessarily the case because people are the same everywhere. I've noticed, like everywhere I've been, people kind of generally like the same types of things. They typically like the same type of content. They typically like the same type of sound, you know? So
Okay.
it's one of those things that's like, well, maybe if you're not drawing a lot of people in your hometown, then maybe reevaluate what it is that you're putting out. And maybe change it a little bit, you know?
Yeah. As an example, here in Argentina, metal is not even not popular like it is on United States, for example.
I wouldn't say that.
If you have a metal band here and you are a local act,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the local scene is very underground,
Right.
very underground. It
So answer me this. Why does Iron Maiden say that their best crowd attendance comes from South America?
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, there's a huge metal scene in South America. Huge. So that just goes back to what I was talking about. People are the same everywhere.
For international acts,
Yeah.
I have seen a lot of great bands, players, local bands here in Argentina,
Right.
killing it, you know, playing great, but the people is like, oh, they are local, don't, you know what I
Right.
mean?
But that goes the same for local bands in their area. I mean, even like Maiden, when they go back and play their hometown, they don't draw like they do in South America, for example. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is like, again, people are the same everywhere. You know, like the local bands around here, people don't give a time of day to, but if these bands go to Europe or if they go to South America, they have huge followings. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's not to say that I think that a lot of times that the local scene gets burnt out on the local musicians because they see them so much, you know, and then they say, oh, well, they're from here, you know, we've seen those guys play for 20 years before anybody knew who they were. So you get that kind of thing too, you know. It's well, especially for bands that actually are popular. But there's other thoughts to that too. You ever seen the movie Anvil?
Anvil.
You know this Anvil about the band. Have you seen this movie?
No.
Okay,
No.
so Anvil was a band that was around back, you know, when Metallica got their start, Megadeth got their start, Anthrax, you know, they were kind of like a thrash, heavy metal thrash band, you know.
Okay.
And they never really did anything, right? You know, meanwhile, Metallica got bigger, Megadeth got bigger, all these bands got bigger, but this band, you know, so they broke up and whatever, and years later, there's this movie made about this band, and they're, you know, asking themselves, well, you know, we should have been up there with all those other guys, you know, like we're from the same area, we come from the same time period. And the whole movie was about,
complaining.
You know, complaining why they weren't as big as all these other bands.
I see.
And it was every excuse in the book, you know, blah, 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 you know, why it didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. Well, kind of towards the end of the movie, there's a producer there, and he asked a simple question. He said, you know, Anvil, you know, yeah, they got all these excuses about why they never went anywhere, because I wonder if they just happened to think to themselves that they just really weren't that good. So this is something you have to ask yourself, too. If you're a local band, and if metal is a popular thing in your area, or if pop music is a popular thing in your area, or if blues music is a popular thing in your area, and you're not getting the attention that you deserve, well, maybe you're just not that good at it.
Yeah.
That's something that never crosses people's minds. You know, a band will never say to themselves, you know what, man, maybe we're just not that good at doing this yet. I've never heard a band say that to themselves. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it is a ego thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course it is. That's why I was saying, like, a good band. If you're truly good, if you're truly, like, it doesn't matter if you're playing metal, if you're playing jazz, if you're playing whatever. If you are a badass band, you're going to have a following wherever you go, including your local town. You know?
Very cool. Yeah. Makes
I
sense.
mean, that's just what I've seen all over the world. You know, like all the bands that are doing something different that's new and cool. Like, oh my God, man, these guys are going to be huge one day. They usually are. You know?
Wow.
I mean, they usually get there, you know? Because why? Because they're killer. Because they're a great band. They're writing fresh material, and they have that upper level content that we were talking about earlier, and they have like a look. Their presentation is there, and they have everything is in place, you know?
Wow.
I think a lot of bands are skipping out on a lot of these ingredients that you need to become successful, and then complain when they don't become successful about their location. You know, like that doesn't make any sense, because if you're good, people are going to come see you wherever in the world you are. You know, so just a different way to think about it. You know.
Yeah, I will send you some bands, some metal bands here from Argentina.
Please.
Because you can listen to it. For me, killer bands, but
yeah. There's a lot of really good bands in the Middle East. When I went over to Egypt with Nader, he turned me on to several Middle Eastern bands, and that are really doing some cool stuff. They're not known, or not yet, you know, but they're playing and they're doing some really cool things. So
yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, send me and I'll send to you.
Great. I have seen so many great bands from all over the world, but like you say, they name is not yet out there.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe it's a question of time, I think.
And exposure, you know. And, you know, look, it takes a lot these days. You can't just be good musically, you know.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
You have there's a lot of stuff that has to be in place nowadays for people to get excited about a new band, you know. You can't just be good at sounding like somebody else anymore, or be even better. You can't, like, be a better version of Cannibal Corpse. You know what I mean? Like, even if you're better, you know, you're still just Cannibal Corpse. You know, it's like, I think music people that are looking for music now, younger listeners are looking for that something fresh to hit their ears that they haven't heard before. And sometimes it takes more than just being good at playing Morbid Angel riffs or
exactly
whatever. I mean, Morbid Angel's not even good at playing Morbid Angel riffs anymore. You know, so it takes more than that whole, you know, thing. If there's a bigger package involved now, you know.
Yeah, I think exactly the same, man.
Yeah.
Playing good is just a fraction of the whole product.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. And how do you see the music industry today? Does it still exist?
Yeah, right. As far as an industry, I wouldn't say that there is an industry. No, not anymore.
Or musical business.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, there is in some form, but as far as an actual industry, I don't think the industry part exists anymore. Now, there are factions of the music industry that exist, like the live music industry exists and is thriving. The live music industry is thriving all over the world. In fact, it's never been higher. The problem is you have easily anywhere to 80 to 100% more bands out there doing it. So the money that's coming in, it gets spread out more over more bands, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, even though, you know, back in the 70s and 80s when gas was really cheap, you know, and expenses were really low, like these bands like Kiss and Fleetwood Mac and Kansas and Boston, all these bands that were big back then, Van Halen, you know, Rush, You know, these guys that went around touring these big stadiums, man, they were making a lot of money, a whole lot of money. You know, that doesn't exist anymore. Because of there's so many bands out there doing it, and they're all getting a share of what money is actually in that, you know, microclimate of the music industry that used to exist. Yeah.
Someone has to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the internet too, you know, has made it impossible to sell CDs. Which selling CDs doesn't even matter, dude. You can't even buy a car or a new computer that has a CD player in it.
Yes.
I mean, not in America, you can't. I just bought a new car recently. You cannot buy a 2018 or 2017 car that has a CD player in it. It does not exist.
Yeah, exactly.
So why would a band? Yeah, why would a band make CDs? It makes no sense. You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from the generation I like to look at it and hold it. But then again, here, let me show you this. You know what my car did come with?
No.
It came with a USB drive, right?
Uh-huh.
So, here's my CD player.
Yeah. I think that's everyone's CD players.
I have 1,200 records on this.
Yeah.
1,200 CDs right here.
Exactly.
See, my band, we're actually making flash drives with our music on it. Instead of making CDs, we're making these.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because, you know, you can put the band logo on it, and then a fan buys it, and then they have a piece of gear that they can use that has your branding on it. I mean,
yeah.
You know, once you sell them a CD of your music, that's it. That's all they use that for, is to listen to it. But this, they can use this for, you know, as long as it works. You know,
exactly.
It just makes a lot more sense, I think. So there is a music industry. It's just going to take somebody that with a lot of money and somebody with a lot of free time that's going to reinvent how musicians are going to be able to get back what we've lost. Because I don't know if that's going to happen or not. You know.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you think about prioritizing money before artistic interest? Because I see a lot of musicians suffering for this topic.
Right. I guess it depends on what you want to do. Some people would rather play music as a job than they would, you know, doing software, for example, or more than they would working in the restaurant industry, or going back to school and getting a doctorate degree or something. You know, like some people just want to play music, and sometimes that requires you taking, you know, maybe gigs or certain positions in bands that you wouldn't necessarily do if it was just for fun. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think that, like, individually, it comes down to each individual person and each individual situations, because, like I said, I'm not the type of guy that would go and just play music just to put some, you know, paycheck in my pocket if I didn't really enjoy what I was doing. You know, so, but I know other people that would.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. No, not at all. It's just individual preference, and, you know, depending on the situation, what type of situation you get yourself into. I mean, I have been in situations in the past where I put finances over artistic expression. I don't usually do that, but there have been times where I have. I wouldn't say that I would not do that, you know. Just depends, again, on the situation and stuff. I was recently asked to do a tour for a big death metal band.
Wow. From the US?
Yeah. They're getting ready to go out on a tour. They're having drummer issues already. They already have a new drummer, less than a year or so. They're already having problems. Asked me to do it, and it's just not something that I'm really interested in. Number one, I can't afford to do it because there's not a lot of bands out there that I've got a business set up for myself, breeding the reptiles and things, and
I know. Yeah.
I'm doing some software things, as well, and I'm doing okay for myself as far as being comfortable with where I'm at home, and I'm not really looking to get back out on tour again for months and months at a time to take less money. You know what I mean? So there's certain things that would be worth it, and there's certain things that wouldn't be worth it. This particular situation just wasn't worth it. But there's other situations that that I've been put myself in that would have been worth it, totally worth it. So it just, like I said, it depends on the situation, and it depends on a lot of different things that involve those situations that you find yourself in.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, there are certain bands that I would play with for free. I wouldn't even care.
Wow.
I mean, just bands that I love so much that I would do next to damn near anything to be out there doing it with them.
But
so it just
you don't like to go out and doing tours.
I do if it's the right situation. Again, I mean, if I can make it worth my while to go out, and if I can actually
make your work.
Yeah, if I can pay my bills here at home, and then make it worth going out and doing it too. I mean, it goes beyond just sometimes like paying your bills at home. Because I can pay my bills being at home. So sometimes it comes down to maybe, okay, so I can pay my bills at home, and maybe I need to make a little bit more to make it incentive for being out there. I guess I guess a lot of the younger guys will say, man, they'll use any opportunity they can to go play. And as you get older, as you've had those opportunities, they kind of become less important to you, So, it's one of those things where, like I said, when you're younger, you have the ability to just say, fuck it, I'll go do it, and jump out and make it happen, But as you get older, it becomes a little tougher.
Yeah, maybe it makes sense when you are 20 instead of 40, I think.
Oh, yeah, a lot more sense.
Okay. How do you see the metal scene today? All over the world.
Right.
How do you see?
It's funny. I'm not the type of guy that really so much follows a lot of things much anymore. So I'm kind of, I mean, I hear new bands and I see what's going on, and I follow some stuff of my friends and different things like that, but I really don't have an opinion either way or the other. I mean, there's a lot of great musicians out there. I would like to hear, the only one I would say about that would be, I would like to hear more of a natural representation of the bands that are out there playing and recording, if that makes sense. I listen to some of these bands' recordings and I go, okay, that's cool, and then you go see them live and they sound nothing like the records, They just sound like a band playing songs like any other band playing songs, Like when I grew up, the bands used to pride themselves on sounding just like their recordings.
Just too much production.
Yeah, it's just, I don't hear a lot of identity in drummers anymore because everything's sound replaced, and I don't hear a lot of identity and life, as I call it, in a lot of guitar players anymore, because they're punching all the riffs in, and every part's punched in, and it just, I don't know, it's starting to get to the point to where everything that I listen to sounds fake.
Okay.
And for like a style of music that's supposed to be so real and honest,
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a group of more fake, you know,
Wow.
musicians go. You know, I mean, seriously, it's so that's one thing that it's not that I have a problem with the music or that I have a problem with the players. I mean, there's brilliant players out there. I just don't understand why all these guys are hiding behind production.
Wow.
You know, it's like I want to hear what a drummer sounds like when he throws his stick on a drum.
Uh-huh.
That's something you can't get from a sample. You just don't get it, you know, and it's lost. You know? That's why I think, like, you listen to a record like, you know, a record like Rain and Blood, for example. There will never be another band that can record something that has the energy that that record has, and it's simply because of the way that it's recorded. That's the thing that people are missing nowadays, because like you can't, the way that stuff was recorded back then, you can't punch in. They were recording on a tape machine that the only place you had to punch in is if there was a break in the song somewhere. Otherwise, you had to play it from A to B, or A to Z, actually, you know?
Yeah.
It's a funny story I'll tell you real quick. When I was in Hate Eternal, Eric and I bought a tape machine for More Sound Studios because we were on tour and we were telling people that we had a studio together and that we were going to start recording bands. And then all these bands were telling us, well, we don't want to record digital or use a computer. We want to record on tape. We want to record on tape. Oh, we want to record on tape. Blah, 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 blah. Tape, 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 tape. All right, so I looked at Eric. Eric looked at me and I said, let's go buy a tape machine and see if we can, you know, book some bands. And so we did. We went over to More Sound Studios. Jim Morris had a tape machine for sale. We bought it. We bought it back, refurbished it, got it up and running.
Wow.
We booked 9 bands over the summer to come record with us. And not one band could actually record on it. Not one.
Wow.
In fact, Hate Eternal was the only band that ended up recording on that tape machine. Out of all the bands that were booked at that studio, we were the only band that actually could record on it.
That's why your nickname is One Take, or not?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that started even before that, you know, because even when we were doing digital stuff, I just like to do stuff in one take. I think the feeling of the track is different. When you're playing, you know, and then like you fuck up and you're like, and you stop and then you start again, it's like a break in the feel. It's a break in the whole vibe of the music. If I fucked up, I just kept going. You know, I mean, and then if we would listen back and if it was something that I couldn't live with, you know, like if it was absolutely like, oh man, yeah, I really fucked that up. Let's do it again. Well, I would do the whole song again.
Wow.
You know, but I wouldn't stop and be like, oh, can we punch that or whatever. I mean, like I said, we couldn't because we were recording on tape machines. But, you know, it was amazing to me that all these bands wanted to record on tape and then they all got there and not one person could get from A to Z in their own song.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think it's a very hard thing to play these complex and fast rhythms in one take. How do you do that?
How do you do it live then?
Yeah, makes sense.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Again, people are hiding behind production.
Yeah, but
you know, I
the
mean,
bands they want their record to sound super perfect and without any
they want
fails.
it to sound like something they're not. Just go ahead and say it.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's the problem that I have with metal right now. And any music, because it exists in country, it exists in fusion, in rap, in everything. It exists in every form of music. That's the problem I have with music. You know?
yeah. And since many drummers can be seen playing again metal in acoustic way, I think that you are also going back to this. What do you think about this topic? Do you prefer to play fast but at a point that it is acoustically audible instead of playing super fast and using triggers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a necessary evil for triggers, you know. Triggers are a necessary evil if you're playing live, you know. Well,
At
kick
least
drum
on bass
triggers.
drum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kick drum triggers. It's so much easier. My pants are ringing.
Is it real life?
Yeah, it's so much more. You know, this goes back to the previous topic, you know, of sound replacing everything and having a natural feel. I mean, I've been recording lately. I haven't even been triggering or sound replacing my kick drums even lately. But I'm not playing like the super top end. I'm not playing like over 240 or anything in most of these songs that I'm doing now with my bands. So I'm finding that I can play up to about 230, 235, getting close
Wow,
to
that's a
240
lot.
without using the triggers.
That's very, 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 very fast, man.
But there's also variables. Yeah. There's variables to that as well. Did you see the Mino videos that I put up recently?
Killer sound, man. All
Okay,
acoustic.
so all acoustic, right? I can't record like that here. Like I almost always have to resample my kick drums here at my studio because I don't have a $200,000 SSL console to record my drums through. So like, okay, that's a big variable for being able to do something like that, is actually having a signal path that's big enough to capture that dynamic range of a mic'd bass drum, you know?
Yes.
So, you know, from a production aspect, I get, you know, why producers want to sound replace stuff. You know, I understand that part of it. It's just, you know, for me personally, I think all of the identity of a drummer is in his hands and in his heart, you know, and like, I like to hear that expression, you know, of how a drummer plays, how they sound, as opposed to how some other dude, you know, hitting a drum that's put on top of that sounds, you know. It's just a lot of the identity, I think, is lost when you do that, you know.
Yeah, maybe the kicks are necessary to, or
Right.
not.
Yeah. And depending on the player, the snare and toms may be too. See, this is you know, now you're starting to get into, you know, delicate areas where you don't want to talk shit about drummers per se. But if engineers didn't have to sound replace it, maybe they wouldn't. You know, so that's the other part of the argument. You know, everybody's saying, oh well, it's just all sound replace or whatever. You know, well maybe the engineer had to do that because maybe the snare drum level was here when it was slow and here when it was, you know, fast.
Exactly.
You know, so I understand that part of it. I think there's very, very few drummers that can actually record themselves and not have to sound replace anything. Very few. You know.
Yeah.
So you can't ask every drummer to be that drummer, you know. I mean, I think that's something that all the drummers should strive for, but I think now just people have gotten lazy and it's seen as just something you do nowadays. So, yo, we're going to sound replace the drums. Don't even worry about changing heads or making sure that you sound good. Anyway.
Yeah. And how do you see the drummer scene today? And which drummers do you like the most?
Right now, I mean, gosh. Man, there's so many good drummers. That's the thing, man. I mean, we'd have an entire episode just on that. You know, and then, like, okay, you start talking about, well, what types of drummers? Like, what types of styles, you know, like, for me, it's endless, you know, I mean, one of my all-time favorite drummers, obviously, is Vinny Colaiuta, because that's, like, you know, in the top 5 of every drummer on planet Earth is Vinny, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I still love Sandoval, man. Like, Pete still still does it for me, man. Like, Pete's a great player for playing blast beats and playing metal, you know.
Yeah.
Dave Shamrock is one of my all-time favorite drummers. He plays for a band called Free Salamander Exhibit.
Uh-huh.
Great player. Todd Zuckerman, another awesome player, good friend.
Faithful.
Yep. John Favicchia, he's another friend of mine. Great player, plays for Dharma. He's done gigs with Spyro Gyra, and he's played on special effects records here and there as well. Man, there's so many great players. Nick Barker, I love Nick's playing. You know, his phrasing.
Yeah.
New drummers coming up. You know, guy Alex Cohen. He's another guy that's a freak. Yeah, he's a freak in nature.
Wow, I definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, and then Nils Felstrom, Dominator, who used to be in Dark Funeral.
Okay.
I mean, look, there's so many guys. I mean, I even draw a blank just like thinking about how many killer drummers are out there nowadays.
Yeah,
it's like if there's a downside to being so many great musicians, it's that you can't fucking remember any of them. You know? It's like, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
It's funny. Yeah. Virgil's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, Virgil Donati's I love his drum sound, his phrasing.
So real.
Yeah. He's very identifiable, his sound. Like I know his sound immediately. That's Virgil.
20 years ago, I think it was, Virgil made a brief reference to your single strokes in an article for Modern Drummer magazine.
Yeah, he did.
How did it feel to be acknowledged by such a great figure in that time?
Oh,
20
man.
years ago.
Yeah, it was killer. It's funny, I've known Virgil a good while. Earlier, we were just kind of acquaintances, and we had passed music back and forth. This is in the late 90s, so, we were aware of each other, and then over the years, we became friends, with the advent of internet and email and shit, and
Amazing.
we just stayed friends a long time, and it's funny, I always kind of get a little bit of a shock. It's like when you pick up a napkin off the floor and there's a spider under it. You know what I mean? Like, I always get that kind of feeling when guys drop my name. The most recent one being Vinny Colaiuta.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah.
What
dude.
say?
It was actually on a TV show.
Wow.
You know who Fred Armisen is?
No.
He's a comedian that used to be on Saturday Night Live, and he does this show called Portlandia now here in the States. And he's a drummer, and he does stand-up comedy and stuff. But he recently did a special on Netflix called Stand Up for Drummers.
Yes, I saw that.
Okay. At the end of it, when the credits are going, he's in a drum shop, and Vinny Colaiuta and the guy from Pro Drums in L.A., they're trying to sell him gear. And it's like a little skit when the things are going by. But anyway, Vinny Colaiuta says Todd Zuckerman and Derek Roddy, right back to back, and you can hear it plain as day. You know what I mean? So Todd called me, Todd Zuckerman and I are really good friends. He called me the day after because I hadn't seen it and I had no idea. And he was like, dude, Vinny name dropped us on this damn, you got to go check it out on this TV show, blah, blah, blah. And he couldn't even, talk to get it out because he's like Vinny's biggest fan, And
yeah, it's great.
It was really, really funny. And then what funnier than that, a couple of days before that, Nico McBrain name dropped me in an article as well. But Nico lives here in town. I see Nico all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've been kind of buddies for a good while. We play golf every now and then. So yeah, he's a really good dude. So that's always, anytime that happens to me, I'm always like, really? Thanks. Yeah, that's just funny. Yeah, I mean, that's funny. The Vinny thing was amazing, though. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, oh my god. It's
Great,
funny.
man. Great. And nowadays, how do you think an emerging drummer can achieve exposure?
Internet. I mean, internet's where it's at, man. Because again, if you're killer and if you put something up that is undeniably like, wow, it'll make its way around. People will find out about you, man. You know, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's becoming harder and harder to make people go wow, which is why like a lot of players that we consider like good players aren't really getting the exposure that they need because they're not great players. So it's pushing everybody to like, in order to get this exposure, it's pushing everybody to become like these incredible badass players, you know. But the internet's still the way it's at. That's still the way, because nothing can do for you what the internet can. I mean, I can put up a video and I can reach, 30,000 people in a week. You can't tour and reach that many people. There's no way.
Exactly.
Unless you're playing with, Maiden or a big band, there's no way you're going to get that kind of exposure from going on tour or, even nowadays with like the companies and the advertising and stuff, even if you were to get endorsed, let's say, where's Modern Drummer Magazine?
Yeah.
Where's Drum Magazine? Like, this shit doesn't exist anymore. So
exactly.
even if you do get signed, even if you do get, picked up as an endorser, other than put you on their website, what are they really going to do for you? You know what I mean? So again, it kind of falls back into the artist's hands again to get themselves up online and make sure that they have a killer product. It's got to look great. It's got to sound great. It's got to be great. And if it is, then you'll get exposure. It's as simple as that.
Even doing covers, you say? Or just original content?
It depends on, again, how good the cover is, what you do with it. I mean, there's so many variables to all of that thing, It's like, you're almost in the market of, like, being a psychic. You're trying to predict what people are going to like based on, a product that you're going to put out. So if you're truly looking to get exposure, you better be damn well doing something that garners a lot of exposure. Because, like, death metal is not it. You know what I mean? You see where I'm going? So, like, saying exposure in, like, a death metal cover song on the internet has nothing to do with each other because, like, I mean, yeah, the death metal community might see it, but that's a very, very small percentage of what exposure is, so
yeah,
you have to be kind of clear on what that is as well. It's like, what is exposure? Because even somebody like me, I mean, I have a pretty decent following as far as a metal drummer in the metal scene and in the drumming community, but outside of that, nobody gives a fuck about me. You know what I mean? Like, nobody. It's not like I'm Justin Bieber or something.
Yeah.
It's not like I can say like I deserve the attention of like Tommy Lee or something because of based off of what I've done. I've simply not done anything that's that popular. Period. So if I wanted more exposure as a player, I'm not going to get that by playing more death metal.
Yes. Makes sense.
You know what I mean? I'm going to get that by stepping in a realm that actually has people that are looking to give people exposure, for certain things. I really don't personally care for that kind of thing for me. I've kind of felt I'm comfortable doing what I've done in the music industry or with my craft or in the drumming world. I'm pretty comfortable with what I've been able to achieve. I mean, yeah, I would love to have some type of gig that, that paid me really well and something that I musically enjoy doing. I would love to be in that situation, but at the same time, I'm not unhappy with the situation in my life as it stands. So I think that brings on another question of, what is it that you're willing to do for happiness and for money? Like that's different for a lot of people too. I have friends of mine, like guy friends, like dudes, that have basically said, $1 million, shit, I'll suck a dick for $1 million. What are you willing to do for money? I mean,
Yeah.
me personally, I don't think I could do that for $1 million.
Wow.
But some people I know can. Nothing wrong with that. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, what are you willing to do to get there, ultimately to get what it is that your ego needs? How far are you willing to go?
Exactly.
That's the question that most musicians will not ask themselves. They beat around the bush, and, you know what I mean, and say, oh man, I'd do anything to have it, whatever. But when it comes down to it, would you? Would you actually do what it takes to get there? Because if you were willing to do that, then you'd be there. So it's kind of a different way to look at things, but it's a very real way to look at shit, because some people are just willing to eat shit. Or, you know what I mean? Like some people are willing to put themselves in dangerous situations, or some other people are willing to, risk relationships and, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Just depends on the person.
And what advice would you give to Argentine drummers, for example, to reach that high musical level, and since we are geographically far from that scene?
Right. I would say, the thing that makes you a better player is playing with other people. And like, no matter where you are in the world, the more people you play with, the better you're going to become. And you don't have to play with people that are always, on your level. Try to play with people that are better than you. Try to play with people that are worse than you. You know what I mean? Like, if you have some friends that have some kids that, kids of their own that are just now starting to play, that are in their teens, play with them. Like, or if you know somebody who's got this badass guitar player that you feel like, man, I'd never be good enough to play with that dude, or play with him. Play with as many people as you can, because that ultimately in the end is what makes you the best musician that you can be. Because, a drummer, nobody wants to hear a drummer really play by themselves, except for other drummers, really.
Exactly.
And, you can have all the technical ability in the world, but if you can't play with people, or if you can only play with the one guitar player you grew up playing with, you know what I mean? So, like, ultimately, how to get to the top of the level that you can actually get to is going to require you playing with as many different people, playing as many different styles of music as possible, And then all of the other stuff comes in time, like in your bedroom or in your practice room when you're not playing with people. Then you're working on the chops, then you're working on the speed, then you're working on whatever. And you should be working on that stuff when you're playing with people as well, I was never a big practicer. Yeah, I didn't practice. I still don't practice. I can't even think of the last time where I actually practiced anything on my own.
I know that, but you have a killer chops, man.
Well, but all of that happened during the context of me playing with people. You understand? Like, so my practicing actually took place while I was creating music with other life forms.
Yes.
I was never the guy that sat in my bedroom by myself and played on the practice pad. I've never done that in my life. Never. Never done that. All of my playing has been on the kit with, probably 80% of the time of my playing has been on the kit playing with other people. Easily. Or if not 90% of the playing that I've ever done has been with other people.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, I kind of feel like, to get to those higher level of play, and, here's the thing, most of the people that are at that high level will tell you the same thing. They didn't get there by being in a bedroom practicing on a practice pad. They got there by doing it in real time with musicians that were either better than them or forcing them to be better than they were themselves,
Yeah.
That's how you do it. And then from that point, when, like I said, when you get to that point to where you're such a player that you can play with anybody, then the exposure will come, That's the thing. Like, people find out about that kind of thing really quickly. Word spreads fast. Especially, like, do you know this drummer Yanni Mader?
Sorry?
His name is Yanni Mader. He's from Israel.
The guy who plays extremely weird
Difficult,
things.
linear, difficult, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
How fast is word spreading about this guy? Like, his videos just, nobody knew who the hell he was until about 4 or 5 months ago.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden, like, everybody's like, God damn, Yanni Mader, man, this motherfucker, he's got all the elements. He's doing something fresh. He's killer at doing it. He looks good doing it. You know what I mean? Like, he's got all of that. He's got that whole package that we were talking about earlier, what it takes to get that kind of exposure. He's got it. That's what it takes nowadays to get there,
But I see many people judging him because he don't play with musicians.
He does, though. You have to go look at his other videos.
Yes, I saw him playing with musicians in a real musical situation. But people in general, this guy, the only thing he does is just chops and playing in
people
his
say
room.
that about me. I mean, that's what comes with exposure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're always going to have the haters, The bottom line is he's one of the most talked about drummers on the scene now. I mean, look, think of it this way. Everybody knows who Mike Portnoy is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
80% of the people that I meet don't like Mike Portnoy. But yet he's one of the biggest drummers on the face of the planet.
Yes.
So again, what are you willing to do for that exposure? That's part of that. You know what I mean? Like, having to hear that kind of shit is part of what you're willing to do to get that exposure.
Yes, makes sense.
Yeah. Because the more popular you get, the more people you're going to have talking shit. I mean, look at all the people that talk shit about Samus. I mean, he puts videos, Samus. From, he did the video of playing Enter Sandman with the dildos and...
Yeah.
I mean, what are you willing to do for exposure?
Yeah, good point. Yes.
And then, 60 or 70% of the people talking about him talk negatively about him.
Yeah.
But his videos get 500,000 views. So,
totally.
There's that balance,
Exactly. Well, I heard that you sometimes apply psychological concepts to drumming. I think it is very interesting. Where does it comes from, and how exactly do you relate it to music?
It comes down to a single expression. If you can say it, you can play it.
Uh-huh.
So, as far as speed is concerned, right?
Yeah.
Every drummer I've ever met is limited speed by how fast he can actually mouth the notes that he wants to play.
Uh-huh.
So, I could tell you how fast your double bass speed is by asking you to play double bass with your mouth.
Wow, that's insane. And it remembers me to those Indians guy who can sing really fast percussive
Tabla,
things. Yeah, ridiculously fast.
And that's where that comes from. it's funny because, like, if you can, like, play a beat, like, if you can actually mouth it,
Yes.
your top speed is going to be what I have not met a person yet on the planet that can mouth something faster than they can actually play it, or vice versa.
Wow.
And this is all there, which is where the psychology of music, of drumming, for me, that's where it started. Because, like, you remember why I was saying that I don't practice?
Yes.
That's not necessarily true. I don't practice on the drums. I practice up here.
Wow.
So, like, 80% of the practicing that I've ever done has been in my head. Like learning clave, for example. When I was doing the Latin stuff down here, these guys asked me if I could play left foot clave, which I had never really done. And over the time period of playing with him, as I was playing, I was just picturing it in my head as I was doing it. And then it just eventually came to me. I didn't ever have to physically do it. I was able to do it mentally, and then I could automatically do it physically, by actually seeing the pattern and by actually thinking about it as I was just playing the music, hearing it, jack, 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 jack. No matter what I was playing up top, I'm hearing this pattern. Then I just trained my brain, to know where it was, and that way my left foot could just execute it,
Wow, but how do you get that coordination? Because it's that very advanced coordination.
Well, the coordination's not. It's actually really easy.
Oh yeah.
It's the brain is what makes it hard. That's what I'm saying. If you do it in the brain first. Now, what is hard physically is playing double bass at 250 beats a minute for 164 bars.
Wow.
Now that is physically challenging.
Yes.
Right? Playing. That's not physically challenging at all.
Yes, makes sense.
You know what I mean? So, anybody can do that. If you're a drummer, anybody can play clave. Anybody. There's nothing physical about it whatsoever.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? But playing double bass at 250, that's physical. So that's where I separated it. Because I'm such a physical player, and because I've grown up playing literally every note in a measure by playing blast beats and shit, I've grown up doing that. So the physical part of, like, everything else comes easily. There's not a lick that Dave Weckl, Vinny, Virgil, any of these guys have ever played that I can't automatically play physically. It's the mental part of it that makes it difficult.
Totally.
My physical, I'm there physically. I can play anything, just because of the nature of how I play and how I've trained myself to play over 25 years, playing all of these notes.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of advantage over somebody that doesn't play like that, that's trying to learn like a Billy Cobham lick, and they might not necessarily have the endurance or the stamina or the physical, the chops to be able to do something like that. So that's kind of why I think that drumming's a lot more mental than it is physical, because physical you can learn fairly quickly. It's like weightlifting almost, Like, as long as you go in and do it every day, you get better at it. And it's the same thing with your brain. As long as you're using your brain every day, thinking about drums and thinking about different rhythms, and you get better at it. But they're two totally unrelated things most of the time. So, like, for anything, like any type of independence or any type of pattern per se, I put it together in my brain first, because I automatically know my body's going to be able to play it. It just has to happen here first for me.
Makes sense.
So I think about it. Like, clave is basically easy. And when you think about it, the pattern, it's very easy. It's left, right, left, together, together. Left, right, left, together, together. Left, right, left, together, together. Back, 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 back. It's like, so I would see that in my brain, And then I would imagine my feet doing the pattern, you know, to the bass drums doing the dun, 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 you know, so I see it in my head, you know, it makes perfect sense right there.
Amazing.
So therefore it translates very easily here.
Great.
Right?
Yeah, amazing, man. Could you tell us some anecdotes about the tours you did with your bands? The good ones or bad ones, stories you can remember?
Yeah, it's funny, like, hey, I did most of the touring that I've done with Hate Eternal, and like, we were kind of like, we're not very exciting people in our like day-to-day lives, you know what I mean? I mean, not that we don't have interest, and not that we, you know, but we weren't like very heavy drinkers, you know. We didn't like, none of us were really into like chasing down women or, you know, whatever. Like, and we all had relationships and stuff. Like, I'm married, you know, I was married. Eric was seeing somebody. Jared was married at the time, you know.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, and we weren't like into causing trouble or partying and like, you know, tearing shit up or doing stuff like that, you know. So like we were kind of boring, you know, you know. But
I mean, traveling, driving.
but other bands, you know, were not necessarily so boring, you know. So most of the stories that I have are typically from like other bands. You know, we toured with Mayhem here in the States, and those guys, man, they're out of control. There was always something, man. Maniac, when he was singing for the band, he wasn't drinking, and basically the band told us, don't let him drink if he's around you. Don't buy him like anything, because he gets kind of twisted when he gets drunk. Wow. Or whatever. Well, we were playing somewhere, and it was like Arkansas or somewhere like in the country, like somewhere. And I just remember like this family showed up, and it was like a mother and father that were all about our age, and then they had their kids with them. And I swear the only thing that they had on were shorts. Like no shoes, no shirts, just shorts, all of them, except for the mother. She had on a tank top. But the two boys and the dad were no shoes, no shirt. And they had gone to the butcher's market, and they had gotten 2 pigs' heads. And they had these pigs' heads in these, like, plastic bags. And the kids, like, they were, like, I'd say 11 and 13 or so. And they, like, the kids had these, like, pigs' heads in these plastic bags. Wow. And the father had a big bottle of Jack Daniels, and the first thing he did is he gave it to Maniac. Maniac killed that bottle, and during the show, the pig heads came out, and like people were jumping up and down on them. And I mean, it was like the nuttiest thing I had seen in a while. It was like very like, you know, the movie Deliverance. You know, it was like very like backwoods, scary redneck. Like, damn, dude, are we gonna make it out of here? Wow. You know, like what the hell's going on? But anyway, Maniac got really drunk and he cut himself up on stage, like just ripped into his arms with a knife. Yeah. And messed himself up really bad. I mean, when you're drunk, you're not going to feel that. But the next day, man, he was all bandaged up, sitting on the bus, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I mean, DSI too. Those guys were always fun to tour with because they would do some crazy stuff, you know. Kind of, you know, but nothing like really out of control, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said, we were kind of boring. We would usually dip out of shows early and get on the road and go get a hotel somewhere and just watch TV. You know? So we didn't really get into too much, but I had a lot of fun touring. I really liked, you know, seeing different places and seeing history, you know, like seeing old stuff, especially when you go to Europe and different things, you know, seeing some of the architecture. You know, I like that kind of stuff myself. You know?
Yeah.
It's always fun.
Were you transporting your complete set for the tours?
Yeah, back then. I have like I've slimmed down a lot on my drum kit these days. I don't really have a lot. cymbals and things like I used to. I mean, I still have a good many in my kit, but yeah, back then I was playing a slightly bigger kit than I am right now. But yeah, I mean, we had our own trailer and we had our own gear and stuff, so we would just haul around with us in the States. Yeah.
Great. How does your career change at the time you participated in the Modern Drummer Festival, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah, that was a game changer. It's funny because, you know, it wasn't something that I really set out to do,
Uh-huh.
but it was definitely something that, you know, it was on. I always said to myself, man, it'd be so cool to do that, you know. It'd be so cool to get to the point where I could influence, you know, the genre that I'm playing with so much that modern drummer would see that, you know, and then ask me to take part of that, you know. That was mind blowing. It really was. It was I still am like, you know, kind of, did that happen? You know, like,
Yeah.
And it was funny because when I was playing in bands, you know, I was trying to get endorsements and I was trying to get companies interested in what I was doing, and it wasn't until after I quit playing in Hate Eternal that I actually started getting some attention from some of the companies and things. And that was basically due to the fact that I was going out to the NAMM show every year, and I was really involved in like the retail side of the industry at the time, you know, like I was always working in some type of drum shop, and so when I would go to the NAMM shows, I was going out there, you know, basically to buy, you know, drums and cymbals and stuff for the stores that I worked at, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't about going out there seeking an endorsement or anything. I got involved with it through the retail world, and then I just met all the necessary people that happened to like me enough as a person to get me to that situation. You know, it's funny because most of the guys that believed in me enough to get me like somewhere like Modern Drummer Festival or wherever it was in my career that I was going with drumming at the time, 80% of those people had never heard me play drums.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, it was something that happened just solely based off of my relationships, my personal relationships with these individual people, you know.
Wow.
Just from over the years of them seeing me, you know, at the shows and them hanging out and talking, being like-minded about things, and then somebody says, "Oh man, you know, I looked you up on the internet, man. I didn't know you could play like that." I heard that a lot, you know, like from a lot of guys, like, yeah, the basically the president of Sonar, you know, he was one of the guys at the time. Was like, I had no idea you were that kind of player, man. Like, what are you doing? Why aren't you on our roster? Why? I said, well, I tried for years when I was playing in bands to get you guys to endorse me, and nobody gave me the time of day.
Yeah.
And then a lot of these people started being honest with me about that time and saying, well, you know, to be honest, that kind of music's not something that we really want associated with our product.
Uh-huh.
And I heard that a lot.
Wow.
You know, because these companies, they were afraid of the content.
Uh-huh.
You know, when they see a Cannibal Corpse cover of a corpse eating the vagina of another corpse,
Yeah.
you know, that's not something that they want representing their product. It's plain and simple, you know.
I understand. Yeah.
And that was a big deal back then. Not so much now, because these companies have realized, like, okay, this is what people like. But it took somebody like me coming along because they looked at me and go, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, you're just this nice guy that wears collared shirts that, you know, how is... And then it took me saying, well, most of these guys are. You know, most of these guys are nice guys. You know, it's just an art form, you know. But I was kind of the guy that basically opened the door for all the other extreme metal drummers, because none of these companies were willing to give them a chance based off of the presentation of the bands that they were in, you know.
Absolutely. Yes.
So now it's more acceptable, but back then, none of these companies, they didn't want to be associated with that. It scared them, it scared a lot of these people. You got to understand, the people that own these companies, they're older people, they're elderly in some cases, and you're trying to pick up an endorsement with this company, and you're handing them an album cover that has basically obscenities on it, and you wonder why you never got an endorsement, So yeah, I mean, that was a big part of it for me, was learning how to navigate that whole thing in order to be able to put myself in a position to get to Modern Drummer Festival. I always knew that I wanted to be the extreme metal drummer that basically wrote the book on blast beats. I always knew that,
Yes.
and I was a guy that did it, even though there was 20 years of drummers ahead of me or before me. Nobody took that opportunity to do that because they were never given that opportunity because of their appearance, because of their presentation.
Maybe Dave Lombardo.
Right.
Yes. I think he was on Modern Drummer 2000. I don't remember. Dave Lombardo.
Yeah, but he wasn't an extreme metal drummer,
Yes.
He wasn't playing blast beats. He wasn't, it wasn't that style of music. I mean, metal drummers, John Tempesta had been on there before. Charlie Benante had been on there before. But they weren't extreme metal drummers,
Yeah, you were the first one, I think,
in
2008.
Yeah. And the same thing with the book, because Lombardo could have had a book. Benante could have had a book. Like, any of these guys could have put stuff out. Nobody did.
Mm-hmm.
Pete could have had a book. Steve Assign could have had one. Like, there was plenty of guys that could have put something out that just never did. It just wasn't on their radar of things to do.
Yeah.
I am more of a drummer's drummer. I'm into other drummers. I'm into education. I'm into playing jazz. I'm into playing Latin. Like, none of these other guys are really into that, So, for me, I knew I wanted to be the one that wrote the book on blast beats, and...
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It's like a history of the blast beats,
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you do all by yourself, all that research for the book?
Well, it wasn't even really research. I mean, you gotta understand, like, I grew up with the scene, I was part of help creating it towards the end, of the blast beat stuff, but, I grew up with it. There was no such thing as Nile when I was a kid, I mean,
yeah.
there was no such thing as extreme metal. There was no such thing as death metal. It didn't exist. I mean, when I was a kid, we had Kiss, Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper, Deep Purple, Iron Butterfly, and then we got, Celtic Frost and Venom and bands like that, Hellhammer, and then we had Slayer and Metallica and Exodus and all that stuff, I grew with the scene, so for me it wasn't about going back and doing research and finding who was before. I lived it.
Yeah.
All I had to do was write down my musical history of what, so it was very easy to do. And the whole thing about even notating everything came easily because, I had worked in a music store or a drum shop for so long that every teacher imaginable came to me at some point and said, "Derek, what's a blast beat? Like, could you notate it for me? I got all these kids asking me what it is, and you can't find it anywhere." So that's where it started for me. So I started notating blast beats for teachers that were teaching drums at the stores that I worked at. So that's how it all came together,
Yeah.
It's funny.
Your living location seems to make it easy to be in touch with the highest drum scene of the world. Here in Argentina, it is not that accessible. We have a drum hero from Argentina, that marked a milestone for South America to be a part in that scene, apart from us.
Right.
It was, I think, 15 years ago or so. His name is Gustavo Meli.
Oh, I love Gustavo.
Huh?
I love Gustavo. Done festivals with Gus. Great player. Wonderful player.
You know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. He participated in the Modern Drummer Festival of 2001.
Yep.
Yep. He always spoke very well of your drumming and your achievement. And he also mentioned that you were participating in the same 2001 contest. What do you remember from that time, and what drew you to the drum festival's music scene world?
Yeah, I remember. I remember that was like for the Modern Drummer, Undiscovered Drummer or something that he won. That he was on for that.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember. There's also a really good video of him from Australia on the Ultimate Drummers Weekend. Do you have that one?
Yes.
That's a really good performance of his. Really, really good. I like that a lot. He's been in Miami too. I've seen him play here in town locally. It's been a long time since I've seen Gustavo. Long time, maybe 5 years. Does he live in Argentina?
Yeah. In
Yeah,
fact,
he's still there?
Yes.
Good.
In fact, the first interview we had with this project was with him.
Oh,
with
nice.
Gustavo.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very nice guy. And the second interview was with Thomas Lang.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thomas is great, man. Thomas is such a funny guy, dude. I love that dude. He's a great dude. Yeah.
Yeah. And the number 3, the third interview we had with this project is the metal godfather, Derek Roddy.
Oh, nice. Good. Yeah. I love doing this stuff. It's good. It's good. You know, I wish, you know, speaking of Modern Drummer and, like, you know, the contest and stuff they used to do, I hate that that's lost. You know, because Modern Drummer, like, their magazine is not really, I mean, everybody's got these, you know, and...
Yes.
And, you know, I wonder what going forward, like, some of these companies are going to do to capture, like, these magical moments in time. You know, like the Modern Drummer festivals, and because I mean, they haven't done Modern Drummer festivals since when? 2010.
Yes.
Haven't. Yeah. So.
Yeah. They died.
Yeah. And then Montreal Drum Fest gone.
Australia too.
Yeah, Australia gone. You know, most of the ones in Europe, they're gone.
Well, Gustavo Meli, the guy from Argentina, he was hosting an international festival here in Argentina.
Yes, right.
In his city, Mendoza.
Yes. Does he still do it?
I think he did 2005 and 2006.
Okay.
Bringing here drummers as Jojo Mayer, Marco Miniman, and many more drummers. I don't remember all the names.
I'd love to get down there. I've tried to come to Argentina a couple of different times to do stuff, and it just never worked out. But I'd love to come down. I'm right here in Miami. I mean, I'm not that far, so.
Wow, I would love to have you too. You appeared in the extreme metal scene with a higher level of speed and also bringing innovation to the concept of blast beat. You know, using dynamics, choose snares and patterns with the left foot, patterns with the right hand, and so on.
Right.
What was your thinking at that moment? You know, for coming out with this.
I can tell you one thing, like the patterns on the ride.
Yeah. From funk.
Well, it started out of necessity because what was happening was as Hate Eternal became a bigger band, we started playing on bigger stages. Okay? So that means, being a 3-piece band, right? It was just Eric, myself, and Jarek. when you go on a bigger stage, that means you get further and further away from each other.
Uh-huh.
And when you're playing fast and you're standing 25 feet away from your drummer, you start getting a little bit of latency, right? So it makes you start drifting time away from your drummer because you're 25 feet away from the sound, right? So when we were playing and all you were hearing was and it was like, 25 feet behind you and you're playing, things would have a tendency to start getting out of sync with each other. So what I had to start doing was I had to start putting the one in there. So he would always know where one was at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, whatever it was where I was counting. I was putting that downbeat in there just out of necessity so the guys that were standing 20 feet, 25, 30 feet away from me had some type of pulse. Because sound, as it travels over time, it starts to, it's like the Doppler effect. It starts to lose, it sinks out of time with the original source.
Yeah.
So that became a very important thing in order to keep us all, locked in time. So that was something that I just started doing out of necessity. And then I started making it interesting. Ding, 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 ding. I started playing the guitar riffs or whatever it was that made it a little more interesting than just playing the ones.
Right.
The other stuff like left foot patterns and playing the 2 snares and stuff, it basically came from being torn between 2 different drum beats. Like I wanted to play a blast part, but I also wanted to play like a slow double bass thing, a slow backbeat that had double bass under it, So I could either play blast beat or I could play so I just decided to do both.
That's amazing, man.
So that's kind of how, that's how that all kind of started, was...
Yeah.
Even the left foot thing was the same thing as the right hand thing. That was also a reference of time of a downbeat to keep us all on the same page, as far as our tempo was concerned. So, like a lot of that stuff, innovation happens out of necessity sometimes, most of the time, actually. People don't have a tendency to invent something new until they need it or until they're forced to do it, so that's kind of how that happened for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that, I think was I Monarch from Hate Eternal.
Yep.
Wow. When I listened to that, I was floored, man.
That's funny.
I hear, well, this is innovation in extreme music.
Yeah.
Amazing.
There's a lot of cool stuff on that record. That was another thing that really pissed me off about my career during the time of being in those bands and playing is because we always rushed recording. Like King of All Kings was written and recorded in 2 different weekends.
Yeah.
So like for me, I never had a chance to work on my drum parts, so to speak. It was always like we were always in such a rush we got to get this done before it's gonna go. We got to get it done before it's finished. I mean, like I never understood that. So with I Monarch, I finally put my foot down and I said, dude, I'm not doing another record before I know what the hell I'm even playing. This is ridiculous. Because the Nile record, same thing. I just went right in and recorded it without ever hearing the shit. Like same thing with King of All Kings. Like the Malevolent record, pretty much I had joined and they already had all those songs, so I had to learn all those songs and go right into the studio and record. It's like it's always been like that, man. Like, and I got so tired of that.
Yeah. Was it Black Seed? Yeah.
Yeah.
Black Seeds of Vengeance that you played
drums?
Yeah,
and see, that was the same thing. Like I just literally we did the drum tracks for that record in 17 hours. And I had never heard this shit before. No.
Wow.
We just drove up to South Carolina, set drums up, put mics on it, started recording. I mean,
Wow.
and I look back now and I go, damn, how much better could Black Seeds have been if I would have known the songs? Like, comparing it to like I Monarch, you know, which I knew the songs and it had all that innovative shit on there because I knew the songs.
Wow.
You know, I was doing all of that stuff well before I recorded I Monarch. You know, like the King of All King tours. Like, dude, I wish I could have recorded my drum tracks for King of All Kings after the tours because, like, the drum parts ended up being completely different. I mean, not completely different where there were blasts, where there was double bass. But, man, there was, like, alternate snare parts going on those songs. There was, you know, ride cymbal patterns going on. There was left foot clave parts going on that aren't on the record because I just wasn't familiar enough with the songs. Fuck, I didn't even know the vocal lines. You know, so, like, how am I going to play at my top level if I don't know the song, you know? That's why I put my foot down with I Monarch. I was say, dude, I am not doing this again, you know, because Eric wanted to rush it and get it done again. Oh, we got to get it done. We got this tour. Fuck that. I'm not doing it. You know, like, no. It's going to live forever. And, you know, like, I want it to be right. I wasn't going to put it in, because I hate King of All Kings. I can't even listen to it. I can't even fucking listen to that record. I mean,
even if it is a trademark for metal drummers.
Yeah, but but again, I think about how much better it could have been. You know.
I understand. Yes.
I mean, if it was if it's a trademark for drummers, then think about what it fucking could have been. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and that was my only complaint is like everybody's so busy trying to rush and do this shit instead of like trying to think about like this lives forever. You know, this piece of music, this, you know, these songs, this collection of songs that we recorded in this piece of music, that shit's going to be there forever, man. Like, why would you want to rush it? Why would you not want it to be the best that it can be? You know, and that's the problem that I always had with like doing all of this stuff that I've done quote professionally is the least professional shit that I've ever done. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable really to think about. Like, I don't know. I just think about how much better, like, you know, that record could have been. I mean, I Monarch, I think is the best that I could have made it. You know, I don't know how Eric feels. I don't know how Randy feels as far as their parts, but as far as what I played, it's the best that I could have done at the time. And King of All Kings, I can't say that about. You know?
Wow. I remember watching some videos from the tours with Hey Eternal, the drum cams.
Right.
Wow. Nasty. Amazing. That's brutal, man. I understand when you say if you could record after the tour, it will be 10 more times killer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was in shape and everything. It's just that the ideas weren't there. But just I simply didn't know the songs. You know.
Yeah.
You know, six months of playing them. That's what we needed. That's what every band needs with all their new songs. 6 months of playing them, then go record them. You know,
like rehearsing all together.
Yeah.
In a room.
Yeah, vocals.
Playing.
Or 4 months minimal. You know, like 4 months is a good time period. 3 months, 4 months of playing them consistently, depending on how many times a week you're playing. You know. But yeah, just
like one time for a week, for example.
Yeah, I mean, on the 4 month side of things, 1 time a week. But if you're playing twice a week, you know, you can get it done in 2 months, 3 months. You know, it's just familiarizing yourself with your own music. You know, knowing the vocal lines, knowing the words, knowing like where accents should be on top of those vocals instead of playing against it, or putting a tom fill over something that's a very key vocal line, but you didn't know that because you didn't know where the vocals were when you were recording it. You know, I mean. All of that stuff matters, you know?
Yeah, same thing happens to me when I record with my band.
Right.
Sometimes I don't know when the singer is gonna scream,
Right.
So, same thing, man. I understand you very well.
That's why I like doing pre-productions, record all the time, record all your stuff, and then work on it over time, and then, it comes together a lot quicker that way when you can listen to it and go like, okay, cool, this sounds great. Yeah, let's record now. Let's record these songs for real now, That's the way I like
Makes
to do
sense.
it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You played extreme music for a long time, which can be pretty exhausting. How was the impact in both body and mind back in those initial years, and how hard do you find it nowadays?
It's funny. I'll tell you a quick story kind of related to that. When I was growing up and listening to Slayer and Napalm Death and Morbid Angel, and when the genre was coming alive,
Yeah.
I was also listening to Chick Corea and Spectrum and Tower of Power and Return to Forever, Mahavishnu Orchestra. I was already listening to that kind of stuff too, right? So obviously that bled over into my playing.
Uh-huh.
And I never will forget, in 1991, I got a promo copy of Human, the Death record, with Sean playing on it. And I remember putting it on and listening to it and being so pissed off because I thought that what I was doing was so original that I had never heard any other drummers, doing what I was doing. And then that record comes out, and Sean's doing what I'm doing, which was fusing.
Sorry. Which record?
Human. The Death record.
By Death?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So Human comes out, and I'm really pissed off because, I had spent years developing myself as a drummer during high school and being in marching band and listening to other types of music and having my own original bands, that I didn't want to be a Sean Reiner clone. Because even though I was doing it first, as far as I knew, when I heard that record, I was like, fuck, now I got to change directions. Right?
Wow.
Because I didn't want to be just... Because if I would have put something out playing like that, everybody would have said, oh, he's just copying Sean.
Yes.
Right? So, because it was very important for me to have an identity that was my own. I didn't want to sound like anybody else, Like I chose, different sized drums and played with single ply drum heads and played with thin crashes and hand hammered cymbals. And I was more like a guy like Dave Weckl playing in a metal band, And,
exactly.
And that's basically what Reiner was and what he was doing. So I changed overnight. I said, all right, I'm not going to play like that anymore. I'm going to out-endurance everybody. That's what I told myself. I said, I'm going to play blast beats longer than anybody. I'm going to play double bass longer than anybody. I said, in fact, I want to fucking start writing songs that are nothing but blast and double bass. Nothing. That's it.
Wow.
No Slayer beats, no halftime, anything with single bass, nothing. Just double bass, hauling ass, or blast, hauling ass. I haven't heard anybody do it. So, before I was looking at what Pete Sandoval was doing and going, yeah, I want to make that more musical by adding more texture.
Yes.
Which is what Sean did. So then I took, okay, well, I want to take what Pete's doing and I want to just turn it up to 10.
Yes. You did it.
Right. And I was kind of like I was the first one to get myself recorded playing like that, which was in Cold Blood, that the Level Up record. That record's out of control as far as drums. It's,
yeah.
Yeah,
So fast.
Especially at the time, there was no... And dude, we recorded that. We recorded that at More Sound, and every damn drummer in Tampa came by the studio when we were recording drums that weekend. Actually, we did it in a Friday night. I recorded drums for that record in 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. On a tape machine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but every drummer in town, Pete came by, Steve Assheim, Lee Harris, everybody came to witness that. Because word, remember what we were saying about exposure, and I said word travels fast?
Yes.
Nobody even knew Malevolent was recording. You know what I mean? somebody happened to come by the studio. I don't remember. I think it may have been Robin, the bass player, the girl bass player plays in Jerusalem now. I think she came by the studio to meet somebody else for something and saw that we were there, heard a little bit of what was going on, and literally within 3 hours, there was probably 25 people came by that studio to see what was going on from every death metal band in Tampa.
Wow.
So that's how quickly it spread. So like when people say, what do I need to do to gain exposure? You got to be killer. That's all you got to do. If you're killer, you'll get the exposure. You know?
But
I mean,
killer, but with originality.
yeah. Killer, but different than other killer players. You know? Like, you can't just be killer and the same thing that everybody else is. You have to, always have to have a little bit more of what somebody else has, you know, in order to get there.
Exactly.
But that's a funny story about that, you know, because, you know, doing that record, that really solidified, you know, the fact that I was just like going to out-endurance everybody because nobody was playing. I mean, even Morbid Angel, who was playing the fastest at the time, they had slow parts, you know, like, dude, we didn't have that shit, you know, it was like just, like, go for it, you know. Yeah.
That record was the next level on speed, I think.
Yeah, at that time,
mind blowing, man.
It's funny, right?
Yeah.
And that's all because I wanted to have my own voice. You know, that was something that was very, very important to me, that I had my own voice, that like, as soon as somebody heard like the first 8 bars of it, they go, that's Derek. You know, that was really, really important to me. More important than speed, more important than, you know, any of that shit, was that I had an identity. That was the most important thing to me.
Exactly. Amazing. Yeah. As we know, you have quite an interest in snakes, and that you even breed them.
Yeah.
Where would you say that passion comes from, and how would you relate it as your drumming?
Right.
To your drumming, sorry.
Yeah. It came from my dad. Growing up in South Carolina, it's a very wild place, right? So we always had some type of wild animal. My dad was really known for taking injured animals and nursing them back to health and letting them go. And, I mean, we had everything from owls to bobcats, ducks, flying squirrels, foxes, goats. I mean, like, anything you can imagine we had when I was a kid growing up. And snakes were part of that. And every once in a while, my dad would get an injured snake in the road and bring it back, and we'd try to nurse it back to health as we could. One time we had a large rat snake that had been hit by a car just on the tail end, and it had survived and was doing fine, but it was a female and she was full of eggs. So while we had her in our care, she laid her eggs. And my dad took them and we put them in an incubator, and we hatched them and then let all the babies go. And I was about maybe 10 or 11 years old, maybe. And that just stuck with me. You know, like, I'm really into, like, evolution and the natural cycles of things that happen on the earth, and, like, the history of the earth and stuff. And it just blew me away that this animal, like, literally has been doing this shit for 1 million years, you know, and, like, the same thing. Just laying eggs and hatching, and the babies go out into the environment and they survive. And it's a trip, you know. So, and it just stuck with me. And honestly, I don't remember a time in my life where I didn't have a snake. I always, as far back as I can remember, I've always had a snake. as a pet, you know what I mean?
I remember an old video from you playing this crazy speed, and in the back, snakes.
Yeah, always had them. So, and when I was in high school, I met a guy locally in town that he was breeding like exotics, like pythons and different things and boas and stuff. But he was making a living doing it, and a good living. He was making a lot of money, actually. And that kind of caught my interest. More so than music, because everybody I know playing music wasn't making anything. You know, but the people that I knew that were breeding snakes and doing that whole thing, they seemed to be making a lot of money. So I always kind of kept that in the back of my head, like, something I'm kind of interested in, you know. And I always had snakes, and I bred my first animals on my own, you know, like in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And
Wow.
I kind of didn't do it for a while because I was playing. I moved down to Florida. I joined Malevolent. Then later got into Hate Eternal and started touring. I mean, I always had snakes, but I wasn't like breeding full time like I am now, you know. But then, yeah, after I stopped playing in Hate Eternal, and I started realizing that I need to get serious about maybe, you know, getting a career or maybe having something that, you know, at least pays my bills instead of putting me in debt tour after tour. So I invested I got a job, and I worked a lot at a local music store, this place, Resurrection Drums, and I saved my money, and the first little bit of money, you know, that I got, I started buying, you know, getting some snakes that I was interested in that I hadn't kept in years, you know, and so I bought a few things. I started breeding, and I sold stuff, and then bought more animals and bred those, and it just snowballed into like a business, you know. So like a hobby that turned into a business.
Yeah, and was a hard decision to decide or music or snake, you know, for a living, what to do? Was hard that
No,
decision?
because I never really thought that music was going to pay for a way of life for me, you know. My dad had a country song on the Billboard charts in the 80s. He was a country singer for a little bit, and he always told me, he said, I'm not going to do music if there's no money in it, you know.
Yeah,
And like I said,
like
I didn't.
all fathers.
Yeah, and I really didn't. I mean, and he had a song on Billboard, you know, and he was telling me there was no money in it. So, excuse me, I got to blow my nose.
No problem, man.
So, you know, I never had it in my mind that I was going to make money playing music. If that was the case, I would have left high school and moved to L.A. or went to New York and tried to be a session guy with people that actually made money playing music, not in a death metal band. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I was just lucky enough that I was able to afford even to do what I did playing metal. You know, it allowed me to be able to do some cool things and see some places and play with some great people, and you know, that's really all I did it for. You know, that's why when I quit Hate Eternal, it wasn't like I wasn't angry or somehow or another like pissed off at anybody, you know, because of the financial side of it. That had nothing to do with it. I just simply said, man, I can't afford to do it anymore. I wish you guys the best of luck, but I'm out. I can't afford it, you know. It's just nothing against those guys or against like anybody doing that or whatever. It's just me as an adult, and for the things that I want to have in life, I just can't afford to be in those kinds of bands, you know.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, why do you left Nile? If you don't mind.
I was never a member of Nile.
I don't know that.
Yeah, I basically, you know, I've been friends with Carl and the guys at Nile since before they were called Nile. Pete, their original drummer, Hamora, he was more my friend than anything of any of the guys at Nile. Like Pete and I had always been kind of friends, and we communicated more than the other guys in Nile at the time, you know. And Pete had injured himself, and he personally called me and asked me to come play on the record. I felt weird about doing it then. I still feel weird about it to this day. That I played drums on his record. It was a weird thing, you know what I mean? But like Nile, honestly, was not a band that I had an interest in joining. I didn't really feel that. With their name and their content, I didn't really feel like they had the type of room for growth as a band that I wanted to have in my band that I was going to be a member of. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of painted themselves in a corner with a sound and with an image that, like, still to this day, 20 years later, they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and they're great. Nothing against Nile or whatever, but it's kind of, more of the same.
Yeah.
And that's good for Nile. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Just not what I wanted to do. I was looking for something that was going to give me more opportunity to grow and express and do different types of things than just playing Egyptian scales and having some samples that sounded Egyptian and having this Egyptian content and theme all the time, the same theme.
Yeah. I understand.
Carl asked me, he's asked me plenty of times to join the band. I just, and Nile would have been another band. Even if I would have joined Nile would have been another band that I would have had to quit because I just can't afford to do it. Again, nothing against the guys in Nile, but I'd be taking a pay cut to be their drummer. I can't justify making half the money that I make just to say that I'm in a band and to be away from home for 10 months a year. It's not worth it to me. So Nile would have been another band that I would have just had to have walked away from at some point because
even with Dream Theater would be the same.
That situation would have been a lot better, but that particular year I would have been taking a pay cut even to go to Dream Theater. That particular year. It wouldn't have been the case every year, but that particular year that I auditioned, I would have been taking a pay cut to join that band. So, it's just not worth it to me. Not that money's everything. Hey, don't get me wrong. But you got to understand that I've toured for 20 years, 25 years in bands. I've seen, the ruins in Athens from a bus window as many times as I can stand to see it. I've driven past the Colosseum in Rome and looked out of a bus window and seen that as many times as I need to see that in my lifetime. It's, to me, to just keep doing that over and over and over again, to not have any growth. I mean, again, for me, life is about growing and learning and adapting and putting yourself in situations that you're not comfortable with and like learning from the situations. And if you're doing the same tours year after year after year after year after year, and you're seeing the same clubs and the same buses and the same people, how are you really growing in life? Like, what are you really doing for yourself?
Wow.
I don't know. Just for me, it's not something that I have a continued interest in doing, If it was the right situation. Hey, recently I got asked to fill in for one of my favorite bands of all time, Queensryche. Okay? Todd LaTorre is a very good friend of mine. They had a situation where Scott Rockenfield is not touring because his girlfriend had a baby and he wants to be home to raise his son for these next couple years when his baby's young.
Yeah.
And Todd had already asked Casey Grillo to do it because Todd and Casey were very good friends. They lived down the street from each other. But Casey was in a position with Camelot that he didn't know whether he could do some of the gigs. So Todd called me and asked me, hey, would I be willing to fill in some gigs for Queensryche?
Wow.
That's one of those bands that I told you I would have done it for free because Queensryche is Scott Rockenfield's probably in my top 3 influences of all time.
Operation Mankind.
Rage for Order, Warning, all the way back to the EP. I love Scott's playing. And like when you really listen to me, and if you really know Scott's playing, you can hear it. But it takes me having to point it out to people because I play a different style of music. Yeah. But Todd, their new singer, he even said it to me. He's like, dude, you'd be perfect, man. He was like, dude, I hear so much of Scott when you're playing. I was like, dude, he's like one of my top 3 influences, period,
Wow.
So that would have been one of those things that, fuck it, I'll do that. Like, don't even worry about it, like, to go and play, that would be so much fun, to do something like that. So, again, it goes back to what we were saying before about the situation. It depends on the situation that you're in, like, and what you're willing to actually do. You know, like I said, it's not really all about money, but as an adult, when you have bills, I mean, hell, this studio, it cost me a couple of grand a month. You know, that's
Wow.
just the studio. That's not, you know, my home. That's not my car payment. That's not, you know, it costs a lot of money to live.
Yeah.
At least if you want to have stuff, you know, if you want to have security in life, it costs a lot to live. But the bottom line is like none of these bands that have asked me to play drums, you know, can replace what it is that I've been able to do for myself here. You know, it's like I'm not going to go out and get a better gig with any of these bands that's better than what I've created for myself. So it makes it hard to leave this to do that when I've done that for so long. And doing what I'm doing now, I feel like I'm learning something every day. You know, I feel like I learn something not only about life in general, but I feel like I learn something about myself every single day. Every day I wake up. Where when I was on tour or on a bus, it's just the same shit all the time. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, you see different places and whatnot, but again, I've seen all those places. You know, there's no new markets opening up, really, you know, that people are going to. I'd love to get to Argentina. I've never got a chance to get down there, but I've been to Brazil, I've been to Colombia, I've been to Venezuela, you know.
Yeah.
I've been to the islands, Mexico. Like, you know, there are certain countries that I haven't been to, things that I would like to see, but I can do that on my own now. And like I said, let's get a clinic hooked up. I'll come down to Argentina. Easy enough, you know.
I would love, man, to contribute to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So I have one more question, and then we are done.
Cool.
What legacy do you think you are leaving to future generations of drummers?
What do I think I'm leaving, or what do I hope I'm leaving?
Both.
I would hope that, I mean, outside of what I know that I've already done for the extreme metal scene, which I'm extremely grateful for, the book and the DVD, and having the educational thing go out there, I think I'll always be known for being the guy that brought education or brought death metal to drumming, or extreme metal drumming to education to the people, through education to the people outside of death metal drumming, you know? Like, I think that's probably one of the things that most people would remember what I've done by, is being the guy that took it from, you know, here and brought the exposure of it here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I wanted to do. You know, that's what
happened.
That's what I hope that I had hoped to do.
I see the same that you say. Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's totally.
Okay. Because
you open the door from extreme metal to a community of drummers and musicians that they are not into this style.
Right. Yeah, that was my biggest. That was the thing that I hoped to leave, you know, on my imprint. You know, that was like the thing that was most important to me. I think is just to be the guy that like made like extreme drumming or blast beats a household name. You know, at least as far as drummers.
Yeah, great.
And I feel pretty good and confident about that. You know, that's a good feeling to know that, you know, that if you do set your mind to something, that you can achieve something like that. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Anytime.
And